Hey, She Ace That listeners, find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Every subscribe, like, and follow goes a long way, and I can't thank you all enough for your support. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back to She Ace That. It's your host, Alexandra. We're officially back after taking a week off. Last week was definitely more of an interviews and prep week for She Ace That. And of course, my goal was to get ahead for the following upcoming weeks. But of course, like right on cue, my body decided that it was a great time to get sick. And that's what happens when you slow down for 5 minutes. So we're on the mend, not really feeling better, but this stuff seems to linger for a few weeks. I got tested for everything under the sun and just trying to gear up and get ready because I have a trip upcoming next weekend, which is also super exciting. So lots going on, but definitely missed putting an episode out this week. So I'm excited for today's guest. I have been really looking forward to this episode to come out. There are so many good things that come in this conversation with Kamalani Akeo today, Pittsburgh's assistant coach. And there are a lot of topics that I'm passionate about. So I want to touch on a few really quickly, whether you're in high school, a college athlete, or a parent sitting in the stands. There's so much in this episode for all of you. First thing I do want to talk about today is versatility. Common topic. We hear about it a lot. I bring it up because our guest today is an example of committing to a college as one position, like a libero, and then actually transferring to being a setter. The majority of the time, you should be practicing your position. You should be really focusing on a niche, but you should also feel confident enough to fill in any of those positions, regardless of the level. I used to tell my athletes this all of the time, like logically in a game situation, I'm going to keep, my players who are playing those positions pretty set. But at the end of the day, if I needed somebody to step up, I don't want them going onto the court looking like a deer in headlights. It opens up more opportunities at higher levels. So if you want to play in college, you need to feel confident in a few positions. When you're in club, especially, you want to find that one position. That's what happened to me. That's when I found out I was going to be a middle pretty much the rest of my career. And you want to lock in. You want to say, I'm an outside, I'm a setter, and put all of your energy into that one thing. And I get it, but what I've seen over and over again in every conversation we've had on She is that the athletes who develop a wide skill set are the ones who end up with more opportunities, not fewer. If you're okay with fewer opportunities, stick with your one position. But if you want more opportunities, you really need to allow yourself to branch out a little bit more. You might be a setter your whole club career, and then a college coach might see you and say, hey, we actually need you as a libero. We love your ball control, but would you be willing to do that? Or maybe you're right side and a program needs a versatile opposite who can set out a system, right? You just never know. And if you've only ever practiced one thing, you've potentially closed a door you didn't even know was open. So take that for what you will. My encouragement, especially heading into the summer, guys, work on everything. Passing, setting, hitting, serve, receive, play beach volleyball if you can. That is I feel like putting all of it together, right? Like the athletic side of playing at higher levels. And the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more options you create for yourself down the road. And our guest today is living proof of that, along with pretty much everybody who's been on She Ace That so far. Second thing I want to touch on quick is what parents need to hear. I've done an episode on this. I'll probably need to do another one down the road. But especially now as a mom myself, like my son's only about to be 2, but I'm very cognizant about this as, time goes on and how I impact him as a parent, right? Like I've seen it from all sides and I've heard it from all sides. And parents do need to have this understanding about supporting their kids through sports. And we do get into that more today. I've seen incredible sports parents. I've also seen situations where, I do say this with love to a point, but like parents unintentionally add more pressure than they realize. And our guest today said something that I think every single sports parent kind of needs to hear. And she said, your kid does not need another coach. They already have 1 or 2 coaches. What they need is emotional support. They need to know that no matter how the game goes, no matter how they performed, no matter if they made the last error of the match, you love them and you're going to be there for them unconditionally. And honestly, that goes for beyond the court stuff too, right? I've watched parents yell instructions from the stands that directly conflict with what we're trying to coach. And I've watched athletes shrink because of it. Most parents are such great parents. They're parents who love their kids and want the best for them. But once you get over that hump of being so invested in your kid, pretty much having your identity as theirs, you forget as a parent, your role isn't to coach but your role is to be the safe place, the unconditional support, the person who says, I love watching you play regardless of the outcome. It's just worth remembering. You are not raising a volleyball player. You are raising a future adult who happens to be playing volleyball right now. They're going to have careers and relationships and challenges that have nothing to do with the gym. The resilience, the teamwork, and the discipline, it's the stuff that transfers. That's really the real wins, right? Real wins in life. So if you're a sports parent listening to this, I just want to encourage you, be the safe place, be the biggest fan, and let the coaches coach because they probably already have one or two coaches at them all the time. All right. One other topic we get into today is the recruiting process. I did do a quick episode on this, but recruiting rules have changed over time. And so it's just something I want to be able to share more information on. Hopefully we can get a guest down the road to just come on and only talk recruiting. So that's my next goal. But Kamalani today, she shares her own experience with recruiting. And I think it's really valuable, especially for families who are just starting to navigate this world and feel overwhelmed. And here's what I hear all the time from parents and athletes is like, I don't even know where to start. And that's normal. If I could go back in high school, I mean, everything happens for a reason. So everything panned out how it was meant to for me, but I would do things so differently from like recruiting standpoint. And I didn't even know when to start, what was possible. Like I had no guidance or support in that realm. You're not supposed to magically know how college recruiting works. But nowadays, the good news is it doesn't have to be as complicated or scary as it feels. A few things that our guest touches on that I do want to highlight quick is number one, it's okay to start broader, right? Like when you start reaching out to colleges, just casting a wide net. And that's actually where most people start because you don't know what you don't know yet. It's all trial and error. But over time, you start narrowing the list based on real criteria, things like where am I willing to live? Do I want a campus or a city campus? Does the coach run a system that fits my skill set? I've had setters on the podcast that say I prefer a 6'2" or I prefer a 5'1". I mean, those things do matter at the end of the day. Do they historically recruit players like me? I've had people on here that might not be the tallest setter or the tallest hitter. There are factors that go into it. And I do think it's important to look at a program and be like, oh, hey, I'm a 5'8" setter, but have they taken a 5'8" setter before? Did that 5'8" setter play back row as a 6'2" or did they play a 5'1"? And I think it's good to just look at the history and every athlete's different. Like I hate boxing athletes into their physical characteristics. Obviously, height is important for volleyball, playing front row, sometimes setting, but I don't believe that height is the defining factor. Holly Tolliver talked about this a few episodes ago. But if you can work on your hops, you can break the box that people try to put you in based on the things that you can't change about yourself. You can't change your height. That's a fact. But you can change how hard you work at jumping. And I did post a video from Holly's episode actually last week. I got a few comments from a few parents and they were getting mad for Holly saying, hey, I don't care if you're shorter than me. I'm better. If you're jumping higher than me and swinging better than me, you're better than me. It doesn't come down to your height. You could be, let's just say 6'2" and a 5'7" or 5'8" or 5'9" hitter could come in and, be getting just as many kills as her. And she respects that. And that's what her purpose was. It doesn't matter if your skill set's still there. Sports is all about doing what hasn't been done before. And if we weren't making records, if we weren't pushing ourselves, if we weren't driving to be better, those adults were saying was like, quote unquote, be more realistic with it. And I'm like, honestly, no, push the boundaries, be unrealistic. You don't want to give false hope, but let them strive for something they didn't think was obtainable. You never know what you're going to get on social media. And that's kind of why I love this stuff. It's because I'm always intrigued to see other people's inputs. I love feedback. So I'm all for hearing it, but I just think it's funny how that was something people wanted to take and run with. Off that tangent, another thing for recruiting is take ownership of the process. Kamalani was responsible for making her own highlight videos and sending her own emails. Her mom helped, which I totally think a parent should be involved to a certain extent, but she drove it. And I think that's so important because coaches want to see that initiative from the athlete, not just from the parent. And if a coach gets an email from a 15 or 16-year-old who clearly put thought into why their program is a good fit for them and stands out, that goes a long way versus your parent emailing them for you. And number 3, and this is one I really want you guys to hear, it's not like a one and done situation for recruiting. Because I did ask Kamalani in this episode, you'll hear it, but she does talk about it from the coaching side too, of coaches are not going to just go see you play one bad game and cross you off the list, right? They have lists of players they're watching. They come back. They want to see how you progress over a season. They want to see how you respond to adversity. So if you have a rough tournament when a coach is there, take a breath. That tournament is not going to make or break a potential college offer. And again, there's so many ways to keep the sport in your life at that level and options and opportunities. So don't worry about it too much. Easier said than done, but like take a deep breath. It's not over. They're looking at the bigger picture than just how you performed in one match to decide if you're good for their program for the next 4 years. So, for any families in the thick of recruiting right now or about to enter that world, take it one step at a time. Do your research, be proactive, and don't let the pressure of one moment make you forget that this is a process. This is a marathon, not a single event or a sprint. So, with all of that said, I am so excited to introduce you guys to today's guest. I honestly could have talked to Kamalani for hours. We might have to do a part two of our episode at some point down the road, especially on the setting side of things. So, today I'm joined by Kamalani Akeo. Kamalani is from Hawaii, where she grew up surrounded by world class volleyball, literally watching future Olympians play in high school gyms without even realizing it at the time. Kamalani committed to the University of Pittsburgh originally as a libero, ended up becoming one of the most decorated setters in Pitt history. ACC Setter of the Year as a sophomore in 2016, a 3-year captain, and nearly 4,000 career assists. She was part of the teams that helped build Pitt into the national powerhouse we know it as today, making multiple Final Fours and competing for national championships. After college, she played professionally overseas, which came with its own set of incredible experiences and challenges, including having her seasons disrupted by COVID, which I could not imagine being in another country away from all my family during that time. So I give her so much credit. And now she's back at Pitt as an assistant coach under Coach Dan Fisher. This is one of my favorite parts about her story, her younger sister, Alexis. We talk about everything from growing up in a volleyball family in Hawaii to tearing her ACL right before college, to the culture and buy-in that makes Pitt volleyball so consistently elite, to what she wishes more parents and setters understood about the game. And this conversation is packed with insight and heart, and I know you guys are going to love it. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Kamalani Akeo. Kamalani, welcome to Shace That.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So I know volleyball runs deep in the Akeo family, and so I want to understand, going back to what your household was like growing up and how you got into the sport in the first place.
So, most people know of my sisters, at least, or that I have two of them. Oftentimes, people don't know that I actually have two older brothers. And so, my second brother, I guess, second oldest brother, he actually was the first one to play volleyball in our family. He was a baseball player. He got injured one year, and then basically somehow him and his friends ended up going out for the volleyball team. And they had a lot of fun and they were all very athletic. And so he ended up being pretty good. And so his high school coach would also do lessons with like younger kids. And so that's where my older sister Leslie started. She went out for like the intermediate team. She's now the head coach at Menlo College near Stanford. And then so his head coach would run lessons. And so me and Lexis would end up going there. I mean, we were the youngest of the group, but they just said, hey, come on out. We'll be happy to have you. Just jump in where you can. And so that was actually kind of how it really started in our family. A lot of people know me and my sisters, but it was actually with my brother. And I mean, once we saw my brother doing it, like once I saw my sister doing it, I was like, okay, this seems really fun. And even before I started playing like competitively for a club, I would just be at their practices. I was in elementary and I would have to walk up to the high school gym and I would just hang out. And the coaches were always so nice. And so they would let me run around and shag balls and practice my serving and do all of those things. So that's kind of how like the actual origin story of, how I got into volleyball.
It's really cool when families are in that dynamic because you have like support through it too. It's not just like you're spearheading it all on your own. You have others to look up to. And I feel like Hawaii is also probably an awesome place for volleyball. Like, I mean, ice teams earlier and things in that realm, which helps. I feel like in Michigan, for example, we are just kind of starting that path for guys. And I know like a lot of my friends in high school, like if they weren't to play another sport, they totally would have taken the opportunity. So I'm glad they had that.
Yeah, volleyball in Hawaii too, like once you start and you get into it, I look back on it now and it's unbelievable how many, world-class volleyball players have left Hawaii or are still playing, in the Olympics. And like a lot of them were playing during the time of like my older brother and sister. So like other than just being around at practices and stuff, I didn't realize when I was young, but I was watching world class volleyball players, in high school.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. We'll get into it too of your decision to go to Pittsburgh, but what is like the biggest culture shock from coming from Hawaii to Pittsburgh?
I mean, this is like the most basic answer, but the weather.
Yeah.
I remember I got onto campus and it was just this was maybe like September and it was hitting like 50s or 60s and I come into the locker room and I'm like taking off like 3 layers of pants and like three like t-shirts and a long sleeve and a sweatshirt and my teammates were all just looking at me like, "What are you doing?"
So funny.
They're like, "It's 60 degrees outside." I'm like, "Yeah, and I'm freezing. Thank you." Yeah, I mean, the weather for sure. I think Pittsburgh, it's a smaller city, but it is a city. And so coming from a place like Hawaii, that was definitely a change. How fast paced everything is, and just the campus, the university campus, and we also have a lot of hospitals on campus. And so just everything is constantly moving. And yeah, the pace of life was a lot faster than I was
Yeah.
used to. Hawaii, as you know, and stereotypically, we're known to be like pretty chill. And if you've ever heard of like Hawaiian time, like, that's kind of what we
Mhm.
run with.
It's such a different world for sure, and I give you credit because it is hard, especially going into college. Like, no matter what you decide for college, even if you're closer at home and stayed in Hawaii, it's still an adjustment, and then on top of, like,
Mhm.
moving thousands and thousands of miles away from home, so I give you a lot of credit, but it all paid off at the end of the day. The cold paid
Definitely.
off. So can you take us back to your high school days and how you navigated high school dynamics and kind of what you went through at that time?
Yeah, so I just to like give a little background, obviously I'm a
Mhm.
setter. In Hawaii, I was pretty average height. Everyone is, 5'6" to 5'10" if you're lucky, and it's pretty rare if you find someone that's taller than that, and those normally end up being the middles on your team.
Yeah.
But my older sister was a setter, and so that's what I wanted to do, and, I played volleyball just a lot, just for fun, and I started, when I was 9 years old. By the time I got to high school, yeah, I'd been playing club um, intermediate, and I did all of those things, but I don't think I was ever, like, one of the best, I would say. I was always just kinda good. I could do it, like, all. I would hit, and I would set and, like, sometimes pass, but I wasn't ever, like, amazing, like, I was a good athlete, didn't ever have, like, the most massive jump or wasn't the quickest or uh, things like that. And so when I played club, my last 2 seasons, I played for Robin Ah Mow-Santos, who's the head coach at the University of Hawaii right now and former Olympian. And so I played for her for 1 year, and then I played the next year. We ended up splitting up teams, and so I was actually on the twos team my junior year, and we were still a very good team. But yeah, I wasn't ever like it, I guess, like in Hawaii, but I got to spend a lot of time with Robin. So I feel like those 2 years when I got a lot of training from her, she also just so happened to like live up the street from me. So anytime she was in the gym, I was in the gym.
Yeah.
And so those 2 years I feel like were really pivotal in high school and where I, like, grew a lot as a setter and where I learned a lot from her and just learned a lot about the game. And then that kind of those 2 years, my sophomore, junior year, it was, like, the perfect timing to transition to I was looking for colleges and for a place to go.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, in high school, those were kind of the years, and I attest a lot of it to Coach Robin, who put in the time and really cared, and I was just trying to soak everything in, and so, yeah.
Did you guys ever have any, like, navigating team dynamic situations or, like, anything in that realm that you had to go through, or did you feel like it was pretty good from your high school experience?
High school specifically, my head coach, he is really, really good about team culture, and so, we'll talk about our Pitt team culture, I'm sure, coming up here, but, that was something for him, that was extremely important before the volleyball, before all of that. So as early as in high school, you're always navigating. Um, you're always navigating different personalities and, you don't choose who you're playing high school with. So we
Mhm.
would early on do, the normal like conditionings to start. We would do team bondings. We would, like just like go to someone's house and so those types of off the court things, I think they helped a lot on the court. And yeah, it's a fast season. It's not like club where it's extremely long. And so
Yeah.
you have to be really open minded. You have to be, I think, a good thing like to think about is like you have to be flexible and ultimately to wanna, I think, have a great experience in high school is just having to feel like whatever you just have to be willing to do whatever the team needs, I would say. Because in club, like we all know, it's like it's more specific. Like you're going there, you're an outside hitter, like you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
It's like they only take so many. And in high school, it's like you can have 15 to 20 players on a team. And it's like if you're not committed to just being the starter or also being the serving sub or the DS that comes in. And if you're not committed to that and committed to being a team player, I think that can, you won't benefit, you won't have as great an experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is important, the off the court stuff, especially in like laying the foundation for your team so that they have something to fall back on, when you do have to work through things together. So I appreciate you sharing that. And like in high school, when did you always know you wanted to play college, or were there things that like kind of was a catalyst to you more of looking into that?
Yeah, so my older sister is 6 years older than me. And so she was already in college by the time I was in high school. So it happened for
Hmm.
me pretty early. Once I saw her and I saw her teammates, people that I spent a lot of time around going to college and playing volleyball. I kind of knew already. And so, yeah, it wasn't like one point for me. It was just like I saw the people around me doing it and I knew that was what I wanted to do. And that for me happened in seventh or eighth grade. So I think it was pretty
Okay.
early on where I decided like, hey, I'm doing this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So did you start reaching out to colleges around that same age, or when did you officially start your recruiting journey?
Yeah, obviously the processes and the rules have changed a bit since when I
Hmm.
was in high school to now, but yes, I started reaching out my freshman year, I would say, my freshman and sophomore year. And my mom would help me some making lists, but I was responsible for, making my own videos and she would help me with the emails, but I would go through the process of sending them off. And so yes, I started my freshman year and I started kind of big, cuz I wouldn't recommend this at this time, but this is where a lot of people start because they don't know where to begin. And so as I got more advice on what to do, I started narrowing my list. As my mom learned more as well, we started narrowing it down. It's like, okay, where things like where do am I willing to live? Where am I like, no, I'm not going to live there or something like that.
Yeah.
Or, did I want a campus or did I want something, like Pittsburgh where it's like a city campus? And I didn't really care that much
Mhm.
about that. So that left a lot of doors open. How far away do I want to go? Started looking into, do these coaches run 6'2s? Because I was a smaller setter. Do they have smaller setters?
Mhm.
So yeah, from there, from the start of when I first started emailing, I narrowed it down a lot towards my sophomore year. And so I'd reach out to places where I'm like, okay, this is a fit. I can see myself going there.
Yeah, and then when did Pitt come about, and how did you decide that?
Yeah, so Pitt came about, I think it was like sophomore going into junior year. And so my sophomore year, coach Robin Ah Mow was my coach. And I think Dan just got the job, or maybe it was the year
Mhm.
after where he just got the job at Pitt. And so they actually had a connection because they coached together at the University of Hawaii. And so as I was looking through my list, Pitt was still on it. And I talked to Coach Robin about it, and she, said wonderful things about Dan and how great of a coach he is and how good of a person. And he had lived in Hawaii, so he has been around the culture and things like that. And so I reached out, and around that time, they were already looking at another setter. So, they came to watch me play at some club tournaments, and he always tells this story um, about how he was watching me once playing, and I was setting, but in the game there was an overpass, and like I was the only one that just kind of like stepped up and was gonna take it or whatever, and he's like, okay, yeah, I. He's like, I want that girl. I like that. I want her on my team. So he tells that story, but yeah. So that's when it started going into my junior year, but they didn't need a setter. But he really wanted me on the team, and he said, "Hey, we would love to take you as a libero. You have good ball control. I know you don't pass right now, but he's like, I think like I can see it. I can see the potential. I think you'll be able to do it, in college." And so that was how it started. I started talking to them, and then I got the opportunity to be on the team as a libero.
That's awesome. And it's interesting because I feel like, that's what I tell a lot of my athletes that I've coached over time in high school, especially, is like, I know you want to find a niche of a position, right? And like feel like, hey, I'm putting all the effort into getting better at this role. But I do think there is such a great thing about being versatile because you never know like what certain colleges or at the higher levels will need you as. And I mean, that goes for high school too. Like you were saying, if you're taller, you're probably pulled as a middle. But if you're able to gain skills in other areas, it not only helps your volleyball IQ of like what your other teammates are doing, but at the same time, you're able to potentially open another door down the road for a different college situation of somewhere you really want to go. And it might not be exactly what you've practiced every day for the past, however many years, but there is such a positive in the versatility standpoint to keep those opportunities open for yourself.
Absolutely, I could not agree more with what you just said.
On that topic of coaches going to look at club tournaments, do you have any advice for athletes who feel like in those pressure situations where they are headed to a club tournament, did reach out to coaches to come watch them, how to navigate just that pressure feeling of having to perform?
Yeah, I have a little bit more perspective now, obviously, because I've done both. And
Yeah.
the reminder, I think, that's always good for athletes to hopefully ease some of the pressure is that, like, it's not one and done. It's not like we go, we watch someone play, they have a bad game, and then that's it. We have lists. We have players that we want to go see. There are some players that show up at tournaments that we're like, oh, wow, hey, she looks great. But that's never it. We always go back. We watch how people progress throughout the season. And so it's not ever like a one or done. And so, which is funny because in my story it was, but that also happened a little bit later. And of course,
Yeah.
they would still always come back and watch me play and watch how I progressed. And so I would hope that that could alleviate some pressure. And then to your point before, I think that if there's anything to focus on and to as you're in high school is to
Yeah.
get really good at everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are kind of the two things. It's like, don't feel like one game is it, or even one tournament. We'll be back. We'll come back and watch you play again. We want to see how you progress. We want to see how you respond to stressors and challenges. And so hopefully some girls hearing that can alleviate some stress for them.
It's about caring. And I think athletes do feel a relief when it's like, okay, these people do want to watch me over time. It's not like this one game is going to make or break if I'm able to play in college or not. There's still so many opportunities or ways to like, keep the sport in your life and continue it. It can feel so daunting in the moment, but in reality, you need to go back to your why you started this in the first place, why you're playing the position you are and the passion you have. As athletes, we always think perform, perform, perform. But in reality, there's other things that you guys are looking at too when you go, I'm sure, like how they treat their parents, how they treat their coaches, what they're doing with their teammates. There's so many more factors than just the stats side of the sport that is important. You did commit to Pitt as a libero, and then obviously transferred towards setting, and you were the ACC Setter of the Year as a sophomore in 2016, three-year captain, almost 4,000 career assists. So what was that change, and how did that adjustment come about while you were at Pitt?
So a little bit, I'm gonna go a little bit more back, but
Okay.
in my senior high school season, I didn't end up finishing the season. I tore my ACL in, November or December, and had surgery then. So
Wow.
a lot of people don't know that part of my story, and if you, like, count it out with me, so, the fastest people come back from an ACL is 6 months, but what people say is that when you should kind of or when your, ligament should totally heal is about a year and a half. So it was in December, and I was at Pitt in June, 6 months later. So on
Wow.
top of the normal stressors of transitioning to a new place, transitioning to college, I was also dealing with this. And, I think it might have been maybe in May that I got a call from Coach Fisher saying, checking in, saying, "Hey, how's the rehab going?" Our normal, like, check-ins, and him telling me, like, "Hey, let's make sure you're still working on setting." And
Mhm.
so going into it the whole time, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna be fine. The jumping demand won't be as much. I'll just be playing back row. Um, it'll be, my rehab was going okay. It'll be a smoother transition." I got that call in May, and he's like, "Hey, you maybe still are gonna be setting some, so, like, make sure you're prepared for that." And so I felt a little bit more stress, I would say.
Mhm.
And so when I got to Pitt, I was doing both right away. I was playing back row and I was setting and I was passing, which I had never done before. But quickly after that, I started to mainly be in the setting role. I started to, I just showed my skills and I felt like I was kind of moving that route. And so it wasn't long that I was playing back row or playing libero, and so kinda once I got there, I feel like I kind of proved myself as a setter and started to kinda win over that spot. So the transition from libero to being a setter, it was barely a transition. I felt like I barely did it. Like, I never played in a game as a libero. I practiced and then I was back to setting, which I'd done all my life, so
I give you a lot of credit. The injury timing is stressful. A lot of athletes go through similar injuries where they feel like this is either game ending with like a sprained ankle or something, season ending, like something larger, or like career ending. And so, do you have any advice for athletes who go through a similar injury or any injuries in general, and how to kind of accept the rest time and repair time in order to continue to be able to keep the sport in your life at that high level?
yeah, I think a couple things. So we talk a lot about like, an athlete who is injured or being like an injured athlete. And so
Yeah.
I think that's almost the number one thing is try to find things outside of volleyball and outside of, making that your full identity that gives you fulfillment or that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And so at the time when I was injured and I wasn't able to play for my last club season, I delved really hard, like, really deep into other things that I was passionate about, like my culture and I was very, very into like the environment. And so when I couldn't be at volleyball, I was doing those things. So I found something else that I was passionate about and I found an escape. The other thing that I'll say about, being injured and we see it at the highest level. We see it with
Yeah.
us is that there is always learning that can be done. And we at Pitt, we actually almost think we're the best at this, but making sure to, if you're at practices, still be engaged, still be listening to drills and listening to coaching. There's always the option to watch video. There's maybe you have an ankle injury. Why can't you set? why can't you just pass sitting on a chair, you know? So there are always things that you can do where you can have a hand in volleyball and still be engaged in it and still learn and
Mhm.
get better as an athlete, as a player. That can help you so that you're still getting better even though you can't play 6 on 6.
A lot of athletes have like the all or nothing mindset. It's like, oh, I'm injured. I can't be looking at stats or watching video or doing other things to keep my body still ready for when I'm done. There's still ways to stay involved. And I think depending on the level you're at, like, especially if you're still in high school, it's sometimes you have to take it upon yourself to accept that and find those things. Like, you're not always going to have somebody to tell you, like, hey, you could be doing this in the meantime, but you still should be actively involved so that you are ready to get back into it. And you brought another point too about the hobby standpoint, especially professional athletes. When you are playing a sport as your full time job, you're so invested. And then when you're done playing the sport, you know what, again, whatever level really, like high school, college, professional, whatever it is, a lot of people sit there and are kind of like, what's next for me? What am I passionate about outside of it? It's always good to have plan B in your mind, or also just things that will keep you motivated. There's no rule book, whether it's an injury, whether you just don't get another contract signed, whether you're not playing at a collegiate level. It's just, I think, a lot mentally that most athletes face at some point in their life and don't have always the tangible tools to kind of get through that or even decide when they're done, right? Like, let's say it's not an injury, just want to eventually do a different career or go into coaching like yourself. And it's like, when do when do you call it? You definitely were part of the teams that kind of changed the dynamic for Pitt, going to the Final Four in the national championship many years in a row. Not many other schools really at all besides like Texas have been able to do that. So do you know what made your teams over those years so special and anything that you look back on and just remember vividly during that time?
I mean, there are so many layers
Yeah.
to what makes our program successful now and what has made it successful over the years. And honestly, I think, and this might sound really, kind of basic almost, but it's really a buy in and it's really
Mhm.
finding people. And I think Coach Fisher is really the best at this, but people who are going to buy in. And I think what helps with that is that in the recruiting process from the start, it's like you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
You know what the pit volleyball standards are, and they are very high. You know what the culture is about. People see it, people feel it. You almost know right away what's expected of you culturally, to where you're gonna fit in. And so like those things are at the front and they're right there. It's like you're seeing it right away. You can feel, if you're gonna kinda, honestly make it or not. It's your choice to kind of buy in. And so I think those are two things that kind of I know people talk about a lot, but like we have extremely high standards. We always have. And
Mhm.
our culture and relationships have always been at the forefront of pit volleyball. We over the years have never sacrificed that. And then I think that's kind of why the culture I mean, Dan, he's extremely intelligent. He knows volleyball really well. He's one of the best trainers, I think, in the country. So he knows that the volleyball will come. The tough part is the culture and the buy-in.
Yeah. It's creating that foundation so that everything can grow from it.
Mhm.
I appreciate you sharing that. It's amazing watching how much coaches can set that up. It's also the team, and like you're saying, athletes and individually buying in and figuring out the best way to go together. But I think the foundation is from the coach perspective as well. Like, you really need somebody to fall back on the harder days, or maybe you're not feeling as great one day. Were there any times that you just felt like, we had to like reset as a team, or any tools that you guys use to kind of get back to baseline?
Yeah, so we talk a lot about small conflicts, especially on a women's volleyball team. Other sports and male sports, it can be a little bit different. Men handle conflict a little bit different than women normally do. But we talk about small conflicts. Basically, we want to directly communicate with our teammates, coaching staff to players. That's kind of the standard, and it's not always an easy one. And we say small conflicts because we don't want things to be left unsettled and to build up into big things. And I'm sure you've experienced something that's happened or somewhere where you've seen that happen. I definitely have. We obviously aren't perfect. Over the years, there have been things that have become bigger conflicts, but the standard is what we're trying to do is something really special. And we know that having the small conflicts and direct communication with, people in our program is going to help us avoid those bigger ones and like the blow ups that we sometimes see that happens.
That goes for tangible life skills too beyond the court. Problem
Yes.
solving and handling, navigating conflicts. It goes for everything. And that is how you become definitely successful and as a more elite team is being able to work through them and kind of leaning into more of curiosity and understanding versus like jumping to conclusions and judgment. And I think, again, no matter the level, that's important, but especially at those higher levels when you are facing even, you know, higher like national championship situations. After graduating, you played professionally overseas. So can you tell us like kind of how that came about and what made you decide that that was your next chapter and then being even farther from Hawaii, how that was for you?
Yeah, I actually had I didn't have an idea of what you could do after. I didn't really
Yeah.
know about professional volleyball in Europe until maybe my sophomore or junior year. And so that was totally all new for me. Luckily, Coach Fisher also played professionally in Europe. And so he had a lot of experience. And so once I knew that that was something I wanted to do, I had many conversations with him about it. And so it was nice to have someone who has experienced it before to kind of mentor you and what to do. And so once I made the decision, he laid it all out for me. And he also told me the good and the bad about his experiences or the people that he's mentored or the people that he played with from the States that ended up going to Europe. So where the process starts is ultimately you decide you want to do it. And it's a little bit different now with the leagues in the States. But back then it was you find an agent. And there are many agencies out there. And the advice given to me was, here are these agencies and go talk to them. Like they are people, go talk to them, see if you think it'll be a good fit for you. And then the next step is go and look at their list of people that they represent and then go talk to those girls as well. And so that's exactly what I did. I had my list of, agencies and then my list of, people from the States who have used those agencies and gone and played in Europe. And I talked to a bunch of those girls too. And then, from there, that's kind of the starting point. You want to sign with an agent once you're done competing in the NCAA and when it's permitted. I actually didn't get picked up. I didn't have a contract right after I graduated. And so I did something, I'm not sure what it's called now, but it's basically it used to be called like a fire sale, but they have, it's like a training camp that they have in Europe where coaches can come and watch you play and also watch you through video. And so they tell you to pack for Europe. So it was in Slovenia this year and be ready to be picked up and go somewhere right away. And so that's actually what happened for
Wow.
me. So I went there, trained for a couple days, coaches from all over the world are tuning in or are there. And I think it was maybe 2 or 3 days of training and, them watching film where they were like, "Hey, we need a setter. Can we get her to the Czech Republic?" And
Wow.
so, yeah, 2 or 3 days I was there, then I was on a bus, then I was in the Czech Republic. And so after you start the process, it can happen really fast or it can happen, like me where it was a little slower, but then it's like you gotta be ready to go right away.
Wow. Yeah. You kind of have the mental model, right? Like, hey, I will do this if I get an opportunity and this is my next chapter.
Mhm.
But then the more details is something that happens just like out of nowhere, very quick. And you just have little time to adjust mentally and prepare. Given that situation, what were the best things about it that you experienced, but also maybe like the harder changes as well?
The best things for me, and I knew this is why I was going to play overseas, was the living in a different country, the
Hmm.
culture, being immersed in it, learning about the area. I didn't know anything about the Czech Republic before I lived there. Learning about the culture and the history, being able to travel to different places, like, really near there. Like, I went to Prague and Vienna on weekends, and that was the best for me. I knew that I was using volleyball as a tool to, like, become more worldly and more cultured, and that was something that I always wanted to do and was passionate about. And then probably the hard part is, like any season, there will be ups and downs, and the downs just can feel a little tougher because
Yeah.
normally you're out there on your own, and the most support, um, you know, not most, but the best thing you can do is FaceTime your family and friends. And
Yeah. On
so
top
I
of a
think
time change and like everything else.
right, exactly. My time change from Czech to Hawaii was 12 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So that was challenging to deal with, but yeah, just the not having your support system there, it gets tough. It does.
Yeah.
But just knowing that there are downs and there are ups, and it's waivers like this, but, like, being able to make it through the downs and being able to, find the good things and remind yourself why you like the game, and yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest about it, it's not always easy. You do get lonely there, but it's almost about getting through those times and just knowing that they're gonna come.
No, it's hard. And the professional athletes I've talked to, that is the hardest part is being away from your support system. That's a constant theme they talk about. And there's so many things like language barriers or culture differences, like you're saying. But then there's also a beauty in being able to learn and really try to, communicate in different ways and still prove yourself on the court. There are so many factors that can go against you, but at the same time, you're always there for the reason of wanting to continue the sport you love at a higher level. And I think it's a great opportunity. And I'm really grateful that in the US now we have a lot more professional volleyball opportunities too, which I'm really excited to see how all of this pans out over the next 5 to 10 years. Like I say this all the time, but it kind of like baffles me that this is the beginning of it. We're so volleyball oriented in the US, and the fact that we've had to have many athletes go overseas, which is again incredible opportunities, but also just like takes away from the home bases here that, we were brought up to, and just being able to have that opportunity. I'm grateful for a lot of athletes that have that now. So it's just crazy that it took so long to build here. So when did you know that you wanted to transition to coaching?
Yeah. I so I come from a big baseball family.
Mhm.
So all the guys in my family played baseball. Majority of my aunties, uncles, cousins, all baseball or softball. And my grandpa coached for, many, many years up until he literally could not do it anymore. My dad has coached and he coached in college as well. And he still coaches, but he'll do, clinics with younger kids. And so, I had my cousins were professional baseball players and now they're all coaching too. So I feel like I've always been around it and I've always seen the purpose kind of in it. And my dad would always tell us, like he obviously loves the sport of baseball, but what he loved most was giving back to, the younger generation and to the community, and just always the feeling like he wanted them to be better off than he was. And so I've always kind of had that in my mind. And I've always known at the basis of like whatever I wanted to do in life, it was going to be that, like giving back to my community and giving back to younger generations. And so
Yeah.
that being my goal, obviously coaching made sense. So I knew that was probably what I wanted to get into after I stopped playing professionally. I did not know how fast it was gonna come.
Yeah.
So, I only played for 2 years, and it was during COVID,
Oh,
and so
yeah.
yeah,
Oh my
so my
gosh.
first year got ended short, but it was just like a month or 2 short, and we got sent home. We didn't finish out our season because COVID, the world was shutting down basically. And so I was lucky
Yeah.
enough to even get a second contract, but we were still dealing with, the lingering effects of COVID. So at the end of my second season, I ended up getting COVID. My league shut down. Um and so after that, I wasn't I wasn't doing that well. I wasn't happy. I was stuck in my room for like a month, basically, in like a small town in Slovenia. And during this time, I was always keeping up with Coach Fisher, and he the same with me. And so one of our last conversations, he mentioned that one of his volunteers was moving on and they weren't going to finish out through the spring, the COVID like spring season. So he said, hey, like, I don't care. Like, you might not be done playing, but if you're not going to go back and sign a contract this year, like, come be on our staff, just volunteer. I'm like, we have a place for you to stay. Like, just come for 6 months.
Mhm.
And, yeah, we're 6 years later now,
Uh,
and so that was kind of the start of it, just like a, "Hey, we need someone to fill in, we need someone to help out," and then things kinda moved pretty quickly after that, um
It's funny how those opportunities sometimes just come to you at the right time in different situations. And I give you credit for the COVID thing, though. I just probably would be so freaked out because we didn't know what was going on. It was such a scary, weird time. And then to be in a different country by yourself, I give you so much credit for that and getting through that time because I feel like that has to have been a little bit traumatic for sure.
Mhm.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, good. I'm glad that worked out at that time. And like it again, it is so crazy how some things like catalyst you into coaching situations. And I'm glad Coach Fisher had that opportunity for you and you took it. And from that perspective, coaching setters and based on your own setter experience as well, what are some things that you wish more setters understood about the position that goes beyond technique, the mental and emotional side of running an offense and being that leader on the court.
Yeah, I think you just said it. I think no matter if you're a captain or you're outspoken or not, y you touch the ball in every single play, and the team naturally looks to you. And so this is something that we discuss with our setters every year. It's like maybe, you aren't the not like me who was a captain or Rachel Fairbanks who
Mhm,
ended up the captain. Maybe you aren't that, but you still need to lead and people will still look to you to lead and bring some type of calm and to be solution oriented and just having the urge to want to figure out like how are we gonna do this, like how are we gonna
mhm,
side out, and so there's always that like intangible that setters have to have, and I do say calm and I mean it's an urgency, but it's an urgency that shows like you believe that people can do it. It's the filling your teammates with trust that I think it really makes some setters stand out from others. And so
yes.
we talk about that a lot with our setters, and you have to be able to communicate. I was really quiet when I came to college, and my coaches were telling me and my teammates were telling me that they wanted me to be louder, and it took about honestly like maybe 6 months for me to really get it and understand why.
Mhm,
But once you break through that barrier, it's like the confidence you feel in your teammates. It's just you feel bigger than you are on the court. Like you have
mhm.
a massive impact.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I do think it's time. Like sometimes you do need practicing specific communication with teammates to fully break through that barrier, like you said. And I think everybody's different in that way. Some people are just easier to navigate that. And then some need just like a little catalyst and push to it. And again, as a setter, you have to set that up. And once you get through that barrier, though, I feel like it's such a relieving feeling. And like everybody's kind of on the same page from the confidence standpoint. But I do think it starts with one person, which is normally the setters. And so I started as a setter growing up and loved it. And then, of course, got pushed to middle in high school just because of my height. But I really appreciated starting as a setter because then I could take from what I knew and the dynamics of everything that a setter's thinking about and kind of leverage that for me to be more successful as a hitter. Give just so much appreciation for setters. You guys deserve the glory. You get the glory sometimes, but really the first person I would always want to celebrate my kill with would be my setter because I knew that our connection was getting there.
What you said is absolutely right. I think people with a setting background, you just end up learning more about the game and more of the
Hmm.
nuances. You really do. And you have to be so aware of what other people are doing on the court that yeah, as you play that position, it becomes more comfortable. But like, yeah, even if you go into any other position, like the best, I mean, as of right now, some of the best liberos in the world were setters. And I think that just helps with like feeling people on the court, knowing where everyone is, the leadership aspect, the communication. So 100% I agree with that, what you just said there.
It brings a difference. And I was talking to somebody else too, and she was like, they would do thankful practices where you would play somebody else's position, right, and practice that the whole time. And it just gave you more of an appreciation and understanding of what the other positions are going through. And I think it's honestly really beneficial to get that insight from a volleyball IQ level, but also an appreciation standpoint.
We'll train our all of our positions as setters, and we'll be like, okay, like our system, like go in and like do hitting lines, and we're like,
Hmm.
you every time before we start, we make them like raise their hand and be like, I am a setter, yeah. So there's no like shying, there's no like shying away, like oh I'm sorry. It's like no. I'm a setter. I'm gonna deliver you a perfect ball, and if not, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I need to do better.
I
But the
love
girls love
that.
that. It's really fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And it brings a fun dynamic to it. You can still be serious through it,
Mhm.
but it's just a lighthearted way to make
Yeah.
everybody aligned. I love that. We do want to touch on your sister, of course, and coaching your sister, and you guys barely missing playing together and everything. So, how is that dynamic? And can you walk us through that experience?
Yes. So, I mean, ultimately, so me and Lexus are very close. To
Hmm.
start, we grew up together. Our older siblings are quite a bit older, so it was just us in the house. And in the beginning, my dad would force her on me, like, you have to drive her there, you have to take her with you, things like that. I didn't want to do it in high school, but as we got older and as she matured, we became really close, like not as just sisters, but as friends. And so ultimately, like, this was one of the most meaningful and fulfilling things I think that could ever happen in either of our lives, especially because it was so unexpected. And also because what we were doing and what we were able to do together was so special. And it was special because of how challenging it was and also the successes. But, like, this is why people have such great relationships with their teammates and coaches because you go through the hard together. And
Yeah.
so us having that experience together and going through the ups and downs only made us closer. And yes, there were ups and downs. I was coaching her directly, and it wasn't always, when you're with your siblings, just another side of you comes out at times. And
Hmm.
so it was really rare, but there was always a time where maybe that like kind of came out, and but we tried to keep it as professional as possible. And the best thing for me about it was that she made it easy.
Yeah.
She's an extremely hard worker, and so and has a great attitude, and wants to be good and wanted to be a leader and was respected on the team. And so it was really easy for me. I mean, she didn't have as many classes her senior year, and so we would have weekly extra rep sessions together. It would be
Uh-huh.
like 30 minutes in the morning, and we'd put on some reggae music and just either work on whatever she wanted to work on or what I thought she needed to work on. And yeah, even things like that, getting able to spend time together, doing what we love and just being around each other was, like you said, really unique, really special, something that is invaluable and that we're going to tell our kids about for sure when they're growing up.
Can bring pros and cons to it, but I do feel like there's so many more pros. I'm sure she looks up to you. I'm sure she appreciated all you driving her around and being there for her. And so I think it's just such a unique experience to go through together. So I really love that you guys were able to share that. It's super special. What do you wish more parents of volleyball, but like any sports, understood more about like supporting their kids in general through either through the recruiting process or just like mentally and emotionally for these athletes?
Yeah, I think for the most part, clubs do a better job of informing parents. So I kind of won't speak on that side.
Hmm.
What I do want to tell parents, what I would want to tell them all is that support. That is what I think that you're there to do for your kids. I've seen it in a good way and I've also seen it in a bad way. Like, please, like, you don't have to be their coach. They already have, one or two coaches. It's like what
Hmm.
they need from you is the emotional support that no matter the games they win, the games they don't win, how good their performance was, if they made mistakes. They just need to know that at the end of the day, that you love them and that no matter how all of that goes, it's like they can always go back to you and that they love you. And we talk
Yeah.
about this a lot at our level because there are so many pressures and there are, from the team and from us as coaches and from the outside world, especially now. But it's like what parents and families are there to do is to support your kid, to be
Mhm.
there and to tell them that you love them unconditionally and that like no matter what happens, you're going to be there for them.
Yeah, they don't need another coach. And then I also love the concept of unconditional support. And their job is to raise successful adults, right? Their kids are not going to be athletes forever. They're not going to be like a volleyball player forever. They're going to have other things that they're going to have to work through and go through, and reminding that aspect of it too. You're not raising a volleyball player, you're raising an athlete who might just be playing a sport right now. That's my goal for my son too. He's only turning 2 in April, but I'm even thinking long term of everything I've experienced as a coach and a player from the whole parent side. It's just like, I want to be super cognizant of that. All right. So last question for you. If you could go back and tell yourself when you were just starting volleyball or going into high school, any advice or any insight into the future, what would you go back and tell her?
Maybe two things. For volleyball specifically, I would tell her play as much volleyball as you can. Like if volleyball is what you want to do, it's just like find every way to play it. Go out and play beach volleyball. Go and pepper with your brothers and sisters or your mom and dad. Go play like pickup. Go just find ways to play, find ways to get skilled. Obviously, like if I was telling a younger person to all of these things are going to help you build up skill, it doesn't come across that way, but just find ways to play the game and to be around it and find reasons to love it. And I think I did a decent job at that, but that's something where I am like so grateful that I did. And I did it for fun. And then the second thing I would say is, and I'm still working on this today, but is to ask for help, I guess, is the most simplest way to put it. There are most people that get into coaching, they get into it because they want to mentor young people. They want to see them grow and they want them to prepare them for the future, for life. And so I always just recommend that people ask for help, whether that's you as an athlete, diving into your coaches and asking them questions or asking them to do more. Most of the time they'll say yes. And the same when it goes for coaching or people trying to get into coaching professionally. And I see it all the time and I see it with Coach Fisher as well, but it's like it's really rare, even though how busy he is, that he'll ever say no to a conversation of a young coach or just anyone who's asking for help or has a question
Mhm.
about anything about his life or his coaching career. And so I think there is so much value in that. And the information is all there for you. You just need to take the chance and go out and ask some people that have done it.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm working on that myself too, is delegating, allowing help. I think it's easy for us to just, not think through that. And so I just appreciate all that you shared. It's so helpful and it's going to help so many people. So thank you so much. Anything we didn't talk about that you want to add for today?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of it. Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you having me and I love talking about like my story and I hope that there are things that people can take from this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And it's truly, as always, an honor to talk to you. And I appreciate it. I could talk to you for hours, especially picking your brain more on settings. We might have to do another episode down the road.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm so happy to talk about setting anytime.
I love it. We need it. Kamalani, thank you so much for being a part of She Said. It's such an honor to talk with you. And thank you, everybody, for joining this week. And we will see you all next Wednesday.
Thanks.